So when I was growing up, fasting was presented to me in such a way that I hated it. I did not like fasting at all, because I did the first kind of fast that I did was a dry fast. A dry fast means no food, no water. And it was a dry fast that was not for a short period of time, it was for 36 hours. And let me tell you, being young and fasting for such long period of time, the only thing that was crossing my mind for the first 8 hours, I can tell you it was good because it was overnight, so I was sleeping. But after that, the only thing that was crossing my mind was food. When are these hours going to end so that I can eat? And I think, yeah, when if you are fasting and your mind is somewhere else, you're thinking about what you are denying yourself, the fast is not effective. So later on, I came to learn, okay, there are different kinds of fast. Actually, it's not just the dry fast that is only advocated even biblically. And also, the other kind of fast that I ever did was in high school. We had our class monitor who helped us to conduct fastings that we used to do more often. We would fast during lunchtime. We would not go for lunch. We would go and fast somewhere else. And I felt that was, let me tell you, the experience that I used to have when we would skip lunch as a class and go somewhere isolated and pray during this lunchtime. I used to get out of there feeling more energetic than I went there. Even that food that I skipped during that time was like, I actually never needed this food. And I felt like, wow, that is good. So this video, let me just put a disclaimer, is based on my own experience of how I have learned about fasting, and probably it may help you. What fasting is basically sacrificing or denying ourselves some form of pleasure or something for a certain period of time, so that during that time we can concentrate on our spiritual growth or on our spiritual nourishment. This something that you deny yourself can be a kind of it can be food, it can be water, or it can be some kind of pleasure or something that you do frequently. You deny yourself that thing for a certain kind of time of period so that you can concentrate on prayers and concentrate on spiritual nourishment. And just to mention, there is fasting is never fasting if during that time you are sacrificing something and you don't pray. Then it's not fasting, or it's called fasting when you incorporate it that time with prayer. Which are some of the things that you can fast from? One, the most common one, is food. The other fasting that you can do is water. You can also do a fast where you are denying yourself some certain kind of pleasures, like for example, social media. Concentrate on your spiritual growth. And also in terms of food and water, you can decide to fast from certain kind of foods. You are fasting, but you during that time that you are fasting, you are denying yourselves certain kind of foods. So let's look at the biblical point. Is the food fast, meaning you are fasting for a certain time, but during this time that you are fasting, you are taking foods. But it's fasting because you deny yourselves certain kinds of foods during this period. And where it's effective, this kind of fasting, where it's effective, it's where probably you are doing a long fast, maybe for like a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month kind of fast. So where the biblical pointing of, we find it in Daniel, where Daniel had fasted for 21 days. And this we can see it from Daniel chapter 10 verse 3, but we can begin from verse 2. At that time, I, Daniel, mourned for 3 weeks. Some verses say, at that time, I, Daniel, fasted for 3 weeks. And others say, at that time, I, Daniel, fasted for 21 days. So it's a long kind of fast. And the description of the kind of fast is seen in verse 3, where he said, I ate no choice food, no meat or wine touched my lips, and I used no lotions at all until the 3 weeks were over. So in this place, it's like uh, it's meaning like during these 21 days or these 3 weeks that Daniel was fasting, yes, he was taking food, but during this time he was not eating wine, he was not eating meat or rich foods. Some verses say, I took no rich foods, meaning he was fasting, yeah, but he was avoiding certain kinds of foods during this time. The next kind of fasting is water fast. And for this water fast, it means like, yeah, you are fasting during this time, no food, but you take water during this time. It can also apply when you are doing a fasting for a long period of time. The basis of this fast, we can see it like from Matthew chapter 4, where Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. In Matthew chapter 4, we see uh, when it begins from verse 1, it says, Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. This was after Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. When you look at it from chapter 3, verse 2 continues to say, After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was angry. So some people argue it out that from this point, or from this verse, it says after fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, he was angry because Jesus was on earth in human form, and it's written he was angry, and it's not written he was thirsty, meaning that probably may just a maybe Jesus during these times was taking water. That is why it's not written after fasting 40 days and 40 nights he was angry and thirsty, but it's written he was angry. And from biological backgrounds and biological researches, it shows that a normal human being cannot survive more than 3 days without taking water. If you go more than 3 days without taking water, you stand a chance of losing your life. And you don't want to die when you are fasting, because even when you go to heaven, Jesus will ask you, why would you die? He gave you life. You have a purpose. Don't die because of fasting. You should fast so that you can be strengthened to continue in this life for the time that God has given you. So yes, from that verse, we see like it's for where you would like to do a longer kind of fast, and you can incorporate water without food. And this now takes me to the third kind of fast, where you fast from both food and water. See, so the biblical basis of this, we can find it from Esther chapter 4 verse 16. And this says, if you read the whole story of Esther, you'll know that there was a time where the Jews stood at a risk of being killed. And so here in verse 16, we see Esther sending a message to Mordecai saying, Go, gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Then the continuation goes on how this fast was going to be. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. So, and I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I'll go to the king, so blah, blah. You can continue with that verse. So here, the nature of the fast that took place from this verse, we can see it was a fast of 3 days. And for these 3 days, the nature of this fast is that they were not to eat or drink for 3 days, which included night and day. So from this, we can see a kind of fast where you fast from both food and water. So the next kind of fasting that you can do is fasting from pleasure. Like in our today's generations, or in the world that we are living in today, it's a world that is technological. So the world has become a global village where we can be able to access social media everywhere. So you can choose time where you fast from social media for a certain period of time, where during that time you focus your attention to prayers. So the biblical pointing, we can find it in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, where this was written basically for the married people, but we, as the others, we can also borrow from there, where we can apply it in our daily lives to fast from other kinds of pleasure, including social media, or include, if you are a party person, including parties, or including avoiding certain kinds of groups of people for a certain time, like you deny yourself a certain kind of pleasure. In verse 5 of that book, 1 Corinthians 7:5, Do not deprive each other except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. Then inaendelea. So from this concept, we can borrow it and apply it in our daily lives, where we can avoid certain kinds of pleasures that we term as pleasures, so that we can dedicate that time for prayer. Based on the concept of how long you should your fast should be, or what you should avoid during your fast, should be basically based on how you feel led or guided by your spirit. There's no set standard or set blueprint of how long the fast should be, or how or what you should avoid during your fasting. For the purpose of feeling your spiritual nourishment, or feeling like you're reviving your spiritual growth, this short-term fasting, like a 1 day fast or half-day fast, and where like a major breakthrough in life is needed, the long-term fast are always like where they do apply. And on what to pray for, you can be having your own reasons on why you need to pray, or what you need to pray for during your fasting. Or you can also pray for confidence and courage, like we can see from the book of Esther. You can pray for understanding and humbling yourself before God, like from Daniel. When you read the whole chapter of chapter 10, you can also pray and fast before you take on a journey. Like this is we can see it from Ezra chapter 8 verse 21, where they were traveling and then they conducted a fast before they started their journey, for God to guide them through their journey. You can pray to know what is your purpose. Yes, in this world, you can pray for God's guidance in something that you are about to take. You can pray for repentance, like we can see from Joel chapter 2, verse 12. And you can also pray or fast for concern for others, like we can see this from Nehemiah 1, chapter 4. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4, as you continue. And on how to know how to fast during this time that you are fasting, we said fasting is denying yourself something, like food or water or both, or a certain kind of pleasure for a certain period, to concentrate on your spiritual nourishment or your spiritual growth. On how to There's also some things that you should not do during this fasting, like for example involving yourself on a quarrel or a fight during this time that you are fasting. Or you should not oppress. Maybe you are a boss somewhere, you should not oppress your subordinates during this time that you are fasting. And on how to fast, you can find this from Isaiah 58. Yeah, Isaiah chapter 58, maybe from verse 6 going onwards, 6 7 there. And you can see during this, when you look at it, it will say like, share food with the hungry, give shelter to the homeless, give clothes to those who need them. As the way you feel like the spirit is guiding you to do, you do it. It also talks about don't oppress, don't quarrel, don't fight during this time. You can read the whole chapter for more understanding on how to do it. And also from Matthew chapter 6, where Jesus was talking about how to fast. People should not know when you are fasting, because this is a moment that is intimate between you and your God, or between you and your creator. It's not You should not make it obvious for people to know that you are fasting, because you are presenting your request to God and it's between you and him. Anyways, this has been awesome to make, because this has been based on my experience, how I have grown and how I have learned how to fast. Because as I had said in the beginning of this video, I never liked fasting. But you can see, if you incorporate these small things, like avoiding certain kinds of foods, even for these kids, as they grow up, they can be knowing, okay, we can fast this way and this way. Anyway, bye. Thank you for watching this video up to this far. I hope this will help you in one way or the other.